When talented winemakers are outdoor enthusiasts, they live in the Sierra Foothills. When it's time to make a world-class cab, they look no further than Napa Valley. Meet Boyle MacDonald. So let's start at the beginning. What really made you dive into the wine industry?
Maybe a background mostly. So when I was young, we spent a lot of time, I lived in Germany, I also lived in France, and so my parents, they were avid wine drinkers, and so we would pack up on the weekends, and I was a little kid, and we would go drive down the road, and if we saw a vineyard, we would turn in, drive up the driveway, knock on the door, and say, "Can we taste your family's wine?" And it was always amazing. They'd always open the door wide, and they'd welcome us in. They'd be in the middle of dinner, and they'd say, "Come sit with us for dinner." And I remember being 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, and they'd give me one of those old crates, the little milk carton, 6-bottle carriers. Mm-hmm. And they'd say, "Come down into the cellar," and we'd walk into the cellar, and they'd fill it up with just unlabeled bottles, or sometimes they'd pull it right from the barrel. And so it was just an amazing experience. And so to have that, I mean, I didn't decide at that point that this is something I wanted to do, but it just left such an impression that this was a fantastic family lifestyle.
Definitely growing up with an Italian mother and Italian grandparents, immigrant grandparents. When we paired our own dinners with friends, it was always with wine, and I realized why it was so much better. I mean, not just the flavors, but it did change the flavors of the food changed flavors of the wines.
So true.
And so we wound up enjoying glasses at an early age, which I thought was early. When you're 21, 22, 23 years old, most people aren't, getting into wine, and we were getting into it.
So tell me then, when you met, you decided you had a vision that you both wanted to get into the wine industry?
Not necessarily.
No.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, I was a kayak guide and a rock climbing instructor and needed a winter quiver, if you will.
Well, the outdoor industry was not my industry, so I had to find something else. I went around, tasted at almost every winery there, and there were 9 at the time. That was back in 1999. And I settled on one winery that I liked every single thing that they poured, and I said, "This is where I want to work."
Her palate, she had this palate. She could pick up on what was going on in the wines, what was positive, also what was negative, and we all found it to be pretty interesting. And we pride ourselves on having a good palate, and the family in general. We know how to cook, we know how to consume, and so that's what accelerated, I think, and it's just kept on going. And the love of it, and because not long after that, I wound up working at the same winery. You always start in the cellar, is my thinking. That's where you really learn.
And now you've really brought it full circle, because in choosing to make a cab, you've developed this amazing vineyard here.
We had a vineyard consultant that I had worked with in the Sierra Foothills who had worked in Napa for 20 years. And so he came out and he said, he told us it was perfect to plant lavender. and he always jokes about it because it's so much work. And so even being a vineyard consultant, and this is how he makes his money, he's always like, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's so much easier to plant lavender." So we were like, no, we're very romantic about it.
So what's unique, I think, about your vineyards is how densely they're planted. So tell me more about the purpose behind that.
The nice thing about planting them so closely is that they're just trying to throw the best fruit, so each vine is competing with each other. And so there's no just lazy vines in the vineyard. They're all trying to throw the best fruit possible. So.
And tell me more about your winemaking philosophy. And you mentioned earlier that you see wine as a beverage. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that.
We call it a European style, but with California fruit. So we in California have this, it's almost like cheating. We get incredible fruit every year. And so the point is not to say, as the winemaker, I need to make the decisions about the vineyard. The point is to say, the vineyard will do its thing, and just kind of listen to it, check the chemistry, check for some flavors, but mostly just listen to the vine.
What is the one thing that would you say you've learned now that you have this vineyard here in Napa? You've spent so much time there. What's the number one thing you've learned?
Gosh. Man.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I always say is it's a product that is pretty incredible. I mean, to be able to take grapes and have so many layers of character, and you can pick up blackberry and pepper and banana and rosemary, all these crazy things that you normally would have to go to the individual fruit or the individual herb to taste. So it is something to be revered, but what I always say is it's just fermented grape juice. Enjoy it. Just drink it. Don't save it and revere it so much that you miss it. So go ahead and enjoy it. Have a great time with wine.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Cheers. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We love sharing these unique stories of these small production wine growers. The childhood experiences and adult passions of Craig and Kate are so evident in every glass of Boyle MacDonald wines. Be sure to get yours today, and thank you for your support.